Amazing Swiss roll cake recipe. Hey, I'm Kawaii. We're making the most delicious Swiss roll ever. So, let's get started. First off, set your oven to 350, nice and toasty. We want to separate 4 large room temperature eggs, and it is important to not get any yolks in the white. So, I'm separating these into 2 separate bowls, one at a time. My yolk goes in one bowl and the egg white goes in another. You can use a hand mixer for this, by the way, you don't have to use a stand mixer. I'm very proud of myself for not mixing this up. You know, if we're separating egg whites into a bowl, we're going to be whipping them up into a delicious meringue. And that meringue has millions of little bubbles in it which will expand and puff our cake up. Grab your stand mixer and a whisk attachment, or your hand mixer, if you're doing that. And we're going to add a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and whip this on high for about 5 minutes. That'll puff things up really nicely. Sugar goes in, mixer increase to high. While that mixes up, grab your 12 by 17 sheet pan, add some butter to the bottom. Add some parchment paper right on as well. And we're also going to grease the parchment paper. We want to release really nicely with this and not have anything sticking. But for now, set this aside. It's time to deal with the egg yolks and the rest of the stuff. It's time to deal with the egg yolks and our remaining ingredients. Now, to my egg yolks, I'm adding in the remaining 1/2 cup of sugar, that's 100 grams. A 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, I'm guessing that's 60 mils, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, in you go, a little contrast. 2 teaspoons of vanilla for a little bit of extra flavor. We're gonna whip this up for 2 minutes until it is light and fluffy, and then we'll add the remaining ingredients in. You wouldn't want to add the flour in right now, cause it would overmix. Pop that on, 2 minutes on high. Now, I'm just gonna measure this out in a separate bowl, if you could dump it in if you wanted to. I want 1/2 cup or 60 grams of all-purpose flour. I would have used so much flour if I just scooped it up like that, because this 1/4 cup scooped 48 grams. Anyways, I also want a 1/4 cup or 25 grams of cocoa powder. Oh, I'm using Dutch processed, which is a beautiful dark and has a fudgy color and texture to it. You could use natural cocoa powder if you want it. Finally, to help our egg whites out, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So, what I'm gonna do now is sift this into the bowl directly. You always want to sift things like this, because cocoa powder is so lumpy, it just is. There's a lot of fat in it, and it just tends to clump. I'm gonna mix this on low until it is just combined. If you went high, cocoa powder everywhere, a mess, you're coughing, don't do it. While that mixes, grab your egg whites. We're gonna fold this in and make the most amazing cake ever. I haven't even told you, this is one of my all-time favorite cakes. It's so light and creamy, but rich and decadent, and soft and amazing. You're gonna lose your mind, gonna lose it. So, it's a coffee whipped cream in the middle. Ah, it's so good. This is fudgy and amazing. I'm gonna fold the egg whites in several batches. The first batch is sacrificial. You will lose so many bubbles, but it'll really lighten the mixture up. So, 3 batches, plop that in and we're gonna fold, which means you're scraping the bottom down and then cutting through the middle and repeating that. So, you're basically mixing gently so you don't pop all of those meringue bubbles. But like I said, you're gonna pop a lot of them in his first batch. The first batch is sacrificing itself, so the next batch can go forward and maintain its light texture. And you want to mix until you see almost no streaks of white. So, it'll take a minute or 2 of folding, but it's really relaxing and it's kind of mesmerizing. So you can see it really disappears, it's cut through the middle, and you're breaking this massive cloud into little, beautiful, floating islands of meringue. This cake just disappears into your mouth, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's all gone, what happened? I don't know what happened. Now, use an offset spatula to gently spread it out to the edges. And yes, it's like paper thin, but that's fine. This is almost the trickiest part because you really want to make sure you have a nice, even layer, so try not to have any hidden mounds. This bakes up so quickly, there's really no time to self-level in the oven. This paper-thin layer is ready to go into the oven, 350 for 12 to 15 minutes. Or until that center is springy to the touch, in you go. While our cake's baking, grab a smooth kitchen towel, not like a terry cloth one with a ton of texture, and we're gonna dust it pretty generously with cocoa powder here. This is what we're gonna roll the cake up in, so don't choose your very favorite fancy kitchen towel, because cocoa powder is not the easiest to get out. Just dust, dust, dust. If you've ever made a roll cake, you know we roll either, usually in powdered sugar. But, for a chocolate one, we're gonna roll in cocoa powder. Okay, and now all you have to do is wait. I will tell you, in the next step. You gotta move quickly, you cannot do half measures. You're gonna confidently plop that cake right onto here with, like, one motion. Don't try and do it halfway, cause then you could break the cake, or no, just boop. Be confident it'll all work out. It might be a little bit messy, so wear an apron. Okay, my cake is hot out of the oven. Grab a little knife and run it just along the edge to make sure nothing's stuck. This baked for, like, 12.5 minutes. By the way, if you overbake your cake, it will crack when you roll it, and that's sad. Okay, so here's the moment we talked about. With confidence and joy in your heart. So now pry this off. I just got these sheet pans, they're really, really nice. But they're the heaviest things I've ever lifted in the kitchen. Okay, there we go. Lift that paper off the top. Amazing! Starting at the short end, we're just going to roll this up, so roll, roll, roll. Tight, but not too tight. You don't wanna, like, crush the cake. You just wanna roll it out, and now it's gonna set. And as you know, cake will firm up a bit as it cools. So, while this is rolled, it'll come to room temperature slowly, and it'll remember its shape. It'll have cake muscle memory. Then we can unroll it, roll it back up. It'll be a beautiful, delicious, amazing spiral. And to help things along, just pop this onto a wire rack. And that way it has a little bit of airflow underneath. This needs to cool for about 2 hours. Towards the end of that, we'll make our whipped cream and ganache. I'll be back with editing. I just want to tell you, it only took 10 minutes to make the whole batter. When I was just, like, trying to hurry and not talking to camera. And then I can still eat the other one, it'll just be a secret cake. A secret cake. Cake number 2 is basically cool. So right now we're gonna make our filling and the ganache at the same time and assemble this cake. It's so quick and easy. 1.5 cups, or 360 milliliters of cream. Heavy whipping cream, mind you. 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. Mix this up, start on low, and then work to high. And while that's just getting started, I measured out 3/4 of a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips and 1/2 cup of cream. This is gonna go into my microwave to scald. So, maybe about 50 seconds in the microwave. Don't overmix your whipped cream. Okay, move it up to high. Okay. As soon as my whipped cream starts leaving noticeable trails in the mixer, just finish it off by hand, and that way you know it's going to be the perfect consistency. The cream should be on the firmer side, but you don't want to curdle it and turn it into sweet butter. The cream's ready. Here we go! That's a nice, like, substantial stiff peak. And we're using powdered sugar, cause it often has cornstarch in it, which can kind of firm things up a little bit as well. Excellent! That is ready. I'm gonna check my cream right now. 55 seconds in the microwave, my cream is really hot and steamy. I'm gonna pour this over my chocolate chips and just let that stand for about 10 minutes. That's about as long as I need to fill this cake and get it all set up, so it's gonna work out just fine. Carefully unroll your cake. And full disclosure, once again, I sped up the cooling process by putting it outside. It's a really cold day. Look at that! See how that's not cracked? It's just keeping its shape, beautiful. Who has been eating whipped cream off camera? I have no idea. plop all this cream out. Look, how beautiful that is, oh my gosh. Alright, spread this into a nice even layer and get it right into the curl on the inside of the cake. We're gonna roll this up now. You want to be gentle with the roll at the beginning. So, there we go. And we're gonna lift it off like this, just lift and roll. Just like that, perfect. You're gonna carefully transfer this onto a wire rack. Now we're gonna get our chocolate ganache together, but just wash your hands first. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of oil in here. If you wanted to, you could use coconut oil. This is a veggie oil. Stir this together, and hopefully it all stirs nicely. 'Cause it looks horrible. It looks horrible. But then look. It's nice and silky and amazing, it just might have a few lumps. While my ganache cools just a bit, it's a little thin right now, I'm using a brush. And as an optional step, just dusting off some of the extra cocoa powder. Now for the fun part, we're gonna spoon the ganache all over the top. Ooh, look at that drizzle. And just to get nice coverage. You can use the back of your spoon for the sides, but expect some to drip down. That's just how it works. You can let this set up in the fridge before you slice it, or if you're adventurous like me, try and transfer it while it's wet. Let's see how that goes. It's like I do this for a living. Okay, now it's ready to serve. Oh my god! You don't understand how delicious this is. The whipped cream is like a light, beautiful cloud enveloped by soft and silky chocolate. Topped with that decadent ganache, it is amazing, and I'm going to eat all of this. Oh my gosh, I hope you get a chance to make this recipe. And if you like this video, check out my playlist.